If you're in year 12, it's getting to the real pointy end of the year. You've hit crunch time. First things first, it's pretty normal to be feeling a bit stressed, a bit worried, or overwhelmed. Heaps of people are going to be feeling the same way as you are. The good news is, though, there is plenty of time to get on top of things and to prevent any end of year 12 glitches. I've got some study hacks for you to use to get it together and power through the very last weeks of school and to bring on that ATAR energy. Are you one of the students who are sitting at end of year exam? You probably would have realised by now that there's a lot of revision that needs to be done, and your brains are starting to feel pretty crammed. But what kind of revision skills can we use so that a bit more of that information actually sticks, rather than feeling as though it's falling out of our ears? We want to be using evidence-based revision skills. What does evidence-based mean? It means that the skill has been researched and actually proven to do the thing that we want it to do. So in this case, these evidence-based revision strategies that I'll be talking about have been proven through research to help us to retain information so that we can feel confident and ready for our exams. You might be pretty familiar with some of these popular strategies for studying. Rereading something over and over and hoping that something sticks in our brain, writing summaries or making dot points about what we have learnt, highlighting and colour coding your notes and making them look quite aesthetically pleasing. But the research tells us that although these strategies can be effective when we're first revising and organising our notes and working out what information we need to remember, they're not going to be that effective with actually making the information stick so that we can recall it in our exams. So what does work then? It's about tapping into something called active recall or active retrieval. This is the process of actively retrieving facts and information from our brains that in turn increase the connections between the neural pathways in the brain that is remembering that information. You've probably heard about how the best way to remember something is to teach it to others. That's because when you teach someone else what you've just learnt, you're actively retrieving all of that information from your brain, you're putting it into your own words, and you're regurgitating it in a meaningful way that makes sense to you and makes sense to the other person. It's strengthening those neural pathways in the brain. Active recall works because the science shows us that we learn far better by practicing retrieving things from our brain rather than putting the information back into them. It helps to build something called practice effects. They've done lots of research studies on this, and they have actually found that rereading something 4 times is less effective than just reading it once and then practicing active recall by testing yourself on what you've learned. Active recall works so well because it requires us to use cognitive effort, meaning that our brains are working really hard and we can feel that mental strain happening while we're doing the task. How do we practice active recall? There's a few different ways to do this. Firstly, making notes with your book closed. So what we want to do is we want to learn a topic, close your book or close down that window on your computer, get out a piece of paper or a blank Word document, and then retrieve the information you remember from that topic by making your own notes and explaining the topic in your own words. After you've done this, open up your book or that window on your computer again, read through it, and add bits that you've missed to your first set of notes. Then close everything up again and repeat. Get a fresh piece of paper or a new Word document and actively retrieve all the information you remember from that topic again. And keep doing this over and over and over again, and you'll find that the information really does start to stick. The next way, write questions for yourself based on the material that you've learned. Then, when you look at those questions later on, actively answer them out loud or in your head. Practice tests are really useful, and you can even catch up with your friends as a group to create practice tests for each other and then set aside time to do it. Do it again and again and again. Keep that recall going over and over and over. Make some flashcards. You can create flashcards by putting a question on one side of the flashcard and then an answer on the other side of the flashcard. Once you've created them, you can use them by yourself or with friends to test yourselves on the topics that you need to study for. You can make flashcards for yourself using good old-fashioned pen and paper, or you can use flashcard apps like Anki, Quizlet, or Brainscape. Anki is a particularly good flashcard app because you can create flashcards, create flashcard decks, and share these decks with your friends so you can learn together. When you're ready to study, Anki will show you the question side of a card. When you think you have the answer, or if you can't remember the answer, you flip the card over and reveal it. After you flip the card over, Anki will ask you to rate how difficult it was to recall the answer. Based on that difficulty rating that you give it, Anki has this clever little algorithm to decide when to show you that card again. This could be as soon as a few minutes from now, a couple hours, or a whole day. The idea behind this is to get you to practice the stuff that you find more difficult to remember more often. This way you spend most of the time studying concepts that are difficult for you, and you don't waste time reviewing information that you already know really well. Genius. If you have multiple exams, rather than cramming the night before or cramming your revision for that subject all into one day per week, it's actually better to do shorter study sessions more often. This is called spaced repetition. By practicing spaced repetition, we're reminded of all of the information we have to learn more often throughout the week, and it'll prevent us from forgetting it between study sessions. Think of studying like this pie. We want the pie to last for as long as possible during the week. So we want to split it up into more manageable portions so that we can stay full, but not be overloading on it all in one sitting and feeling like we never want to eat the pie again. For example, rather than spending 6 hours on one day studying everything you need to know for your chemistry exam, your chemistry is pie in this example, we want to spend maybe 2 hours on Monday studying, an hour on Tuesday, 2 hours on Thursday, and another 2 hours on Saturday. You're still studying for the same amount of time. You're just using your time more wisely and giving your brain the best opportunity to remember all of the information for longer periods of time. There is science behind the spaced repetition technique. It's based on something called the forgetting curve. The more often that we review something, the less likely we are to forget what we've learnt, and we'll remember that information for a longer period of time. It's how we can go from feeling like we're remembering something as much as Dory to having the memory of an elephant. And as the saying goes, an elephant never forgets. Now it's time to power through those last few weeks of school and kick some goals. Practice active recall like a pro, quiz yourself with flashcards, and master your study sessions to become a memory maestro. With these techniques in your arsenal, you'll have your brain working so hard that even Einstein would be impressed. No more cramming, just smart study sessions that keep your brain satisfied and your memory sharp. Now go out there, kick your end of year goals, and remember, you're not Dory, you're an elephant.